Hello fellow YouTubers and RVers. I'm here today to show you how to install a smart thermostat, to be specific, the Nest Learning Thermostat, into your RV. So you're going to be replacing this thermostat with something a little more modern and something that has more features. One might think you can take this and wire it directly into your existing wiring, but that's generally not going to be the case. The reason being, this operates off of 24 volt AC. The thermostat in your RV runs off of 12 volt DC. So the signal basically going to the control board or compressor or whatever is 12 volt DC. So at some point during the installation, we have to supply this with 24 volt AC, but then the signal that goes to your AC unit has to go back to the original 12 volt DC. Now that sounds like it might be a huge task, but it's not, and it can be accomplished with two components and a little bit of extra wire. The first component is going to be a relay board. Now in this particular installation, just so you know, I've already installed my thermostat. This is all mocked up just so you can see what's going on. But in this particular installation, we have heat, AC, and 2 fan speeds. So that's 4 relays. This single board has all 4 relays that you need on it. It's also designed for 24 volt AC operation, and on the other side has a place for you to supply the original 12 volt DC that we need to send to the unit. The other item you need is a 24 volt AC transformer. Now I can't show you mine because it's already installed in the wall, but you've seen them. They're a little black box. It plugs right into a receptacle. It has 2 wires coming off of it. Now both of these items, that transformer and this relay board, you can purchase on Amazon, and I will link both of them in the description, for under $35. There is another installation video. He does a great job of it, but the relays he uses are more expensive, and each one of them is bigger than this single unit. So this installation is a lot more compact and simple, and it saves you a little over $50 on your conversion. So a few things to let you know right off the bat. There is a 12 volt DC hot wire behind here. So when you remove this, you're going to have wires that come out with it. Hopefully when you get it all the way out, there's going to be some plugs. There's 2 harnesses, and you'll be able to disconnect those harnesses. That way you have no exposed wires, and then you will end up cutting those harnesses away from the thermostat. Now, another thing is to locate the breaker for the AC unit you're working on and turn that breaker off. That way there's no danger of any electricity being here, no danger of it coming on while you're working on it. Now, in my case, I'm going to be accessing the hole behind this. The reason being is I want this controller board in the wall out of sight. It won't fit through the hole that's behind here, but it does fit through this one, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'll also go into more detail and closer shot of video on how you hook these up. The only other thing you might need, and I highly recommend it, is go to Home Depot, get a short roll, maybe 20-foot roll of 18.5 thermostat wire. And what the 18.5 means is 5 conductors, each one of them is 18 gauge. Now this works out well because if you read the documentation on the Nest thermostat, and here's the base for it, has little terminals where you hook up your wires. The documentation specifically states that they do not support stranded wires. So there's a good chance that the wiring in here is not only stranded, but it might be a little bit too big to fit into these little connectors. So this right here eliminates that problem. And it's inexpensive as well. I think it's like $10. The other thing is, and I'll show you as we do this, You'll remove your thermostat. And as I said, I'm already done here. But when you remove it, you're going to have wires. See, I cut mine loose. You're going to have wires that come out with it. Okay? And hopefully, you have plugs just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and set this out of the way just for now. Before you cut the thermostat loose from this wiring, hopefully you have these plugs and you can just unplug them. You don't have to worry about keeping track of which one goes where because they're opposite each other. This one will only go back where it's supposed to go, and same thing for this one. Okay, now once you have this unplugged, if you choose to do so, you can go ahead and cut these wires. If you want to leave a little bit extra so you can put them back on later in case you want to sell the RV and put the original thermostat back on, you can do that. But if I end up selling my RV, I'm either going to let the thermostat go with it, or I'm going to put back in something a little bit more modern than this. So now that you have these, which you will be using later, we'll set those aside. Oh, but I do want to show you one thing. When you strip these wires back, you're going to have stranded wire. And what I like to do is get a soldering iron and tin each one of the wires. So it basically makes this end of a wire a solid wire. It's just easier to work with, easier to clamp down on. You don't have to do it because, like I said, if you buy this thermostat wire, you're getting rid of the issue that this base plate has with stranded wire. I just do this for convenience. Okay, so now we have our harness here, and you can see, let me go ahead and get this plate out. You're not going to be using this. I just have this up there just to hold that thermostat so y'all can see what was going on. But you can see the hole behind here, too small. This won't fit. And I can't cut it larger because this barely covers the hole. So what I did was, I took this off. And now we have a larger hole to get that control board in there. This right here, I don't unplug it, just put it out of the way somewhere, tape it up or something. I put it in here and close the door so it's out of my way. So now if you happen to remove your thermostat and the hole behind it is large enough to fit this in, you won't have to do this part. So you remember I mentioned the 24 volt AC transformer that I can't show you because it's already installed. Well, that is located under my refrigerator where I found a receptacle. And my refrigerator is right behind this wall. So I put the transformer down below the refrigerator and I ran the wire up through the wall. I used a rod to fish down through there and pull it back up. So here's the wire for my transformer. Now, don't plug it in yet because you're going to have exposed wires. But this is a AC current. So you don't have a positive and a negative. So you don't have to keep up with which one of these is positive, which one's negative. These can be hooked, interchanged any way you want. So we'll leave that hanging out for there right now. So I guess what we'll do now is I'm going to switch the camera around and go into a closer view on these components, explain what each one does, and show you exactly how to hook it up. And we'll be right back. Okay, so here's what we're working with. We have our relay board, our original harnesses. Here's my piece of thermostat wire, which is 18.5, 5 conductors, 18 gauge. It's pretty much color coded for our needs, but there is one exception which I'll mention later. I'm going to explain what each of these wire colors are, what they do. Now, to start with, you have this white wire, which is your heat. Blue wire, which is a 12 volt ground. Red wire, which is 12 volt positive. Yellow wire, which is your cooling. Green wire is going to be fan high. gray wire, fan low. Now, you may have done some research before and read about the blue wire being the common wire. Well, oddly enough, when you're talking about 12 volt, the negative is the common wire. But what they're talking about when it comes to residential wiring is this is the C wire when you're in a house. This blue wire is C, and that is the 24 volt AC. In this case, we're dealing with our RV, which is 12 volt DC. So this is a negative. We're not going to use it. So as you can see here, I went ahead and clipped it. I have these other ones stripped and they're tinned. This is clipped off because it's not being used. Now, in our harness, we have a green to match our green, a red to match our red, a white to match our white, a yellow to match our yellow. We don't have a gray in this harness. So we're going to use the blue as our gray. Okay? So just forget about the blue wire over here. Forget about it completely. It's not used in this situation. So we're going to use the color blue to take place of the gray. Now, in addition to those wires, I made these little jumpers out of a piece of that thermostat wire. And they are designed to connect all four of these lugs. And it installs in this first screw, and into the first screw of the next block, into the first screw of the next block, and so on. So it's going to go here, and then we'll have another one that goes here, and another one that goes here. And then we will feed our 12 volt DC into this first lug, and basically that's supplying 12 volt DC to all four of these blocks. So I will go ahead and do that right now just to show you. If you look at these, you won't be able to tell here, but when you unscrew these, there's a plate that drops down. And this goes on top of that plate. And I'm going to go ahead and stick them all in because it's a lot easier. Now you can see it goes to the first screw of each block. Go ahead and tighten them all down. Now, let's have a little explanation about this relay. You can skip over this part if you don't want to know what it does, but it might be of interest to you. So what we have on this side is the input side. This is your output side. These are your relays. This white block here, these two screws are common. That means they're connected together. So if I input 24 volts here, this screw over here is going to have 24 volts on it. It's basically one connection. It just has two screws. These right here are four different inputs, and we'll use heat, cooling, fan 1 and fan 2. Now these correspond to these four blocks up here. So this block here would be heat, cooling, fan 1, fan 2. So what happens is we're going to supply this lug with a 24 volt AC that is going to come from the thermostat. Actually, it's going to come from that transformer. So we're going to run one wire from the transformer to this block, and then we'll have a wire coming out of this other screw going to the thermostat's C terminal right here. You can see this in the wiring diagram that I'll have with the video. So what that does, that supplies 24 volts of AC power to these relays. And when a signal comes from the thermostat, it activates a relay. And a relay, all it is a switch, an on and an off. And what happens is when that switch turns on, the 12 volts that we have right here is transferred to this screw. And then we have a wire coming out here going to our air conditioner. So that's how we have 24 volts AC here, but we end up with 12 volts DC here. The 24 AC that's right here does not go up here. All it does is activates, is used to power these relays. The power stops right there. It does not go past it. So now what we have to do is wire up the relay board. So I'm going to set this aside for just a minute. Put this here. Okay, so what we have here is our fan harness. Remember, green is fan high, gray is fan low. So this, remember, is our output. This is our input. So we said this is going to be heat, this block is going to be cooling, and these two will be fan. Now, you go to this second screw. This third screw on each block is not used. That screw, that screw, that screw, that screw are not used. Use the second screw on each block. So we're going to go down here and hook up gray here. And then we're going to put green on the middle terminal on this last block. So now we have our fan harness hooked up, ready to connect to the RV. Okay. Now this one here has our white for heating, blue unused, red for 12 volt, yellow for the cooling. This goes out to the wiring on our RV, so that's output. It's going out to it. So the first one will make heat. I almost messed up. First one is heat, which is white. It really don't matter which one you make which, just as long as they match on the other side. I'll show you that in a second. So I just hooked up heat. Now we're going to hook up cooling. Goes into the second terminal. Now, what about this red wire? Well, this is our original 12 volt DC. So that's why we have these jumpers. We're going to put that right here under the same lug as that first red wire. And now we have 12 volt coming in and powering each one of these. So right now this is a little switch. Let's say on this block right here. It's a little switch that's in the off position. When the signal is sent and it activates this relay, the switch is going to click over, and the 12 volts that is present in this block is going to be sent to the fan, signaling that the fan needs to come on. So now we're connected completely on this side. This blue wire, you can cap it off, tie it off, whatever. I just stripped it back to where there's no wire, and I'm going to leave it. It's a negative, it's a ground, so it's not like it's hot and it's going to short against something. That's wired up on that end. Now we're going to come to the input. Now this is coming from your thermostat to the relay. So All we have to do is match colors on this block here. This first screw is for the first block, second screw for the second block, third, and so on. So this first one we know is white. So we're going to go white right here. The second one, yellow. Third one, gray. And remember, we said we're going to make blue our gray. And then green on the last one. When you tighten these down, make sure the exposed part of the wire is up in there far enough, but don't go so far that you're clamping down on the insulation, because you might end up having a error in the connection. It won't actually connect because it's touching plastic instead of copper. Okay, now what's this red wire for? Well, remember, we're bringing 24 volt AC into this board from the transformer. It's going to go under this first screw. But we need to get that 24 volt AC to the thermostat. So we'll come onto this screw with the red wire. Now this is wired up correctly and completely for operation. All we have to do now is hook these to the Nest base. So you can bunch these together. Push them up through here. Alright, now hopefully you can see well. The yellow goes to Y1. Press this down, insert, release. Okay, the white goes to W1. Press that down, insert the wire fully, and release. Okay. Now here's where I messed up on. I didn't mess up. Made a little error on connecting the wires, and what happened is my high-speed fan on the thermostat was actually low, and vice versa. Green is high, and you would think, okay, I'm going to put green under G. If you had one fan speed, yeah, you would do that. But Y2, we're actually going to assign to fan 2, which is high. So we're going to put green under Y2. Blue as our other fan, which is fan speed 1. We're going to put it under the G. The red, remember, was our 24 volt common. It's going to go under the C. It gets kind of tight working in there after you get so many wires. Push on the harness and get it in there. If that little tab doesn't stay pressed down, then your wire's not in there correctly. Okay, now you have a complete harness wired up and ready to put back into place, and the way it's wired up is going to work. The only other thing we have is this RC. Remember, the transformer's in the wall. We're going to bring one black wire from the transformer to here, to this terminal, okay? And we're going to bring the other black wire up to here where it says RC. So that's two connections we have left. I'll get the camera set up for the next view, and then we'll finish the installation. Okay, so I kind of jumped the gun on putting this on. I wanted to do it under close camera coverage so you can see how it's hooked up. You do need to go ahead and disconnect these, and you'll see why in a second. The reason being, we have to be able to get this through here. So what you can do is just actually route these plugs okay, what's going to be the easiest way? Let's bring them back out. Getting tangled on some of the other wires that are in there. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's see if we can drop this down through here. Hook this up. We have to get these two plugged together. Maybe I can get this down through here. Before we do that, you have your two leads coming from your transformer. Remember, we have to power this white block right here. So take either one of these two wires, it doesn't matter which one, and connect it under that first screw. Okay, that's connected. Now this other wire, route it down and bring it out the thermostat, hole for the thermostat. Okay. Now this other plug, we can route this down through here. Pull that plug out right there. Plug it back together. And remember, those plugs can only go one way. You're not going to accidentally plug it into the wrong one. Okay? Now that that's done, these wires can go, these plugs can go back in the wall. Tuck them back in out of the way. And then this end that hooks up to your thermostat, we're going to push it down, bring it out the hole for the thermostat. And then after you do that, if you want to, you can reach in here and move that board around and kind of position it where you feel like you're comfortable with it sitting. Okay. So now all my wiring to hook up is out here. We have the wire remaining from the 24 volt AC transformer, and then the wires here, all of these hook to the base. So we'll go back in here with the wires. Yellow to Y1. White to W1, just like I showed you in the video. Red to C. Green to Y2. Blue to G. And once we get this all hooked up, we'll test it. If you happen to find out that when I put my fan on high, it's actually on low and vice versa, all you have to do is come in and switch these two wires. Swap them around. You can do it here or on the relay board. It's going to be easier to do it here probably. Okay. Now, this last wire is a transformer wire. Bring it through the hole, and it goes to this RC. Okay, we can tuck the excess wire back in the wall. Okay, so now that I've done that, we'll go ahead and put this back in place. That's in place. Now I need to locate the screws for thermostat. I have them right here. Now I'd already pre-made these holes. The original screw holes for the original thermostat are here. Won't work for this, so I had to make new holes. That's not a big deal. You do want to line it up so that the little level bubble up here is level. Hold it in place, get it level, and then snug these down. Don't over snug them, you'll strip it out. And now, other than popping the faceplate on, we have a complete installation here. I can get it lined up. And there it is. Okay, give me just a second. I'm going to turn on the breaker for the AC. Now when you plug this in, you won't get this. You're going to get a setup screen. It's going to want language, Wi-Fi information. Okay, you have to excuse the lighting. In order to get this exposed correctly, I had to light this area up, and it's still not quite right, but I want you to be able to see the display. So after you get your thermostat plugged onto the base, it should go through a boot process and then go into a setup menu automatically like this. And here you just scroll, you turn this to scroll through the options and press to select. And we're going to select US English. Then it's going to want you to confirm. Now it's going to go down to equipment. Are you a Nest Pro? Now let me point out, there is a Pro version of this thermostat and a regular version. They're identical, hardware and software. Only difference is the price you pay. I think the Pro version, they have it so professional installers can buy possibly at bulk or and get a lower price per unit. But you're going to say that you're a Pro. It's going to give you a disclaimer saying that incorrect settings can damage your equipment. If you're not safe at this point, if you don't feel safe at this point, you need to stop. But if you want to continue, go down to continue and select. Do you want to add your Pro ID? No, just skip this step. Scroll down to skip, press. Comes to this screen, it shows all your connections. The first one selected is Y1, and it shows that we have cool, it's electric, and it's forced air. That setting is correct, and it won't let you change that in this case. Scroll over to the right to W1. That has heat, gas, forced air, don't use fan. That happens to be correct. It is heat, it is gas, it has a fan, it's forced air. You don't use the fan in this case because the fan on the heat is run off of 12 volt. And it comes on automatically when the heat comes on. You don't have an option of turning the heating fan on and off like you do the AC fan. So there's one wire that signals the heat to come on. There's not another wire going to it for fan. So you're going to don't use fan because the heat is automatically going to use the fan anyway. So all these settings are correct. Now if I were to press it, I could go in here and change. But You know, I can change each one of those, but I don't want to change them because they're correct. So I hit continue, go back to here, scroll again to the right, 24 volt common, that's correct. So I'm going to go past it. Now I'm going to keep going to the right past this part to where it says done highlighted here. Scroll some more. That goes to RC. That's power. That's correct. Scroll around to G for fan. That's correct. This Y2 is set at cool to electric forced air. Cool to does not mean fan speed number 2. That is like a stage 2 cooling. That's incorrect for this application. You remember we put the second fan wire to Y2. So we're going to press select and we're going to scroll for this top one here and then press select and we can scroll and change it, and we're going to change it to G2 fan. Hit select, press it in, and then it'll go to continue. Press it again and it's going to go past to the next screen. Okay, cool electric, we're back at Y1. So everything is set up correctly now. We're going to scroll around until done is highlighted blue. Press that in. And it tells you your system is heating, cooling with a low and a high fan. That's correct. Continues highlighted, press it in. Now it's going to want you to connect to the Nest app. At this point, I'm not going to. It does walk you through it, but I'm going to go not now. And it's just saying you can add it later. So click next. Now internet connection. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hit connect. It's going to show you a list of available networks. Choose the one you want. It's going to want your password. And you have the option to go in caps with your letters. We'll try to do this quickly. Confirm your password. It shows it right there. Then go to done, which is your check mark. Click, and it's going to say connecting. This might take about a minute to do, depending on what. I'm not sure what all it's doing. I know it's getting an IP address. I think it's doing a few other things in the background because it does take longer than what you would expect for it just to connect to your network. Okay, it says the thermostat's online. Press to continue. Checking for a software update. If it does need one, it'll prompt you and you can scroll and click update. It'll update it. Then it'll reboot. Says your thermostat software is up to date. Okay, now it wants to know your location. Now it's going to try to get your location. It's just telling you what it does. Click continue. It's going to try to get your location based off of the location your router or internet connection is providing. Right now it's selecting Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is close to where I am, but it's not the exact location. So I'm going to hit no. And then it's going to ask me to select in North America, USA. Now it wants a zip. So I'll put the zip code in. All this can be changed later. Once you have it, click done. It wants to know what kind of dwelling this is. This is a single family. Now it wants to know temperature. Click that. Should your thermostat begin by heating or cooling your home? We're going to say we want it to cool our home. Now, these are eco settings, and if you read this, it'll describe it. You can change these at any time, but what you're basically doing is setting a max or minimum temperature. Hit continue. Choose your eco temperatures. It's saying 50 degrees, heat to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which to me, that would be a little cool. But see, if you go past a certain level, they consider it no longer eco. I'm going to set it to the highest eco, which is 62. Cool too, I'm going to turn that to off because I want it cold in here. I don't want to set a limit. Well, actually, I'm going to set... See, here's the problem, is the setting I'm choosing. The lowest it'll let you go on that is 76, so I'm actually going to turn that off. Turn that off. I'm going to use the learning feature of the thermostat. I'll manually set it to the temperature I want daily, and eventually it will learn what temperature I like. So I'm going to hit done. System test. Okay, your thermostat is now configured for your system. Continue. Test now. So I'm going to go to, I'm not going to test heating because it's already hot in here. We'll start with high fan, select it, and you hear my fan come on. Hit done. Done again. Let's go to low fan. Done. Done again. Cooling. Okay, I heard the compressor kick on. And the fan, of course. So that's working. Done. Done. Not going to test heating. Go down here to done. Continue. Setup is complete. Continue. And finish. And there is current temperature in here right now is 79. Because these studio lights I have turned on. I'm going to leave it right above that for now. And that's it. You're set to go. Hope the video was helpful to you. Thanks for watching.